What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Wealth Not Wait. I'm your host, as always, Joseph Coizza. And in this episode, we are talking about how I just closed my company. Now, for those of you who know me well, those of you who know me personally, you know that since 2014, I technically, not quite exactly because I wasn't 18, owned a business that was dedicated to making video games. And I just closed that. So but before we get into it, I want to make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe before I bring value to your day, your week, your month, your year, your life. Make sure you let me know, and I'm going to keep bringing you that good, valuable content. So essentially what it was back in 2013-ish, was really big into video games. That was also when I started working, as you guys know. Therefore, I sunk thousands upon thousands of dollars into video games from my job working as a 13-year-old bussing tables at what would later become our restaurant, Bella Italia. So I had started working there. I was making money. I was really big into video games. And I was always a kind of creative and let's go big or go home kind of person, especially as a kid. And back in elementary school, a few years before this, we talked about with a couple of my friends at the time, possibly creating a video game. Now, we had no clue what the fuck we were doing at that time, but at the beginning of middle school, I bought a bunch of books, started learning about it, and actually became really knowledgeable on the topics of coding and graphic design and video game making. And if I had to, especially now with the resources that they have Unity, Blender, they have codes, like just packs of script that you have for free. You could essentially throw assets together and play a video game that you essentially made. You just put stuff together, granted, but you could easily create a video game in a week, a day, even maybe if you really tried that hard. And it's a really kind of cool thing that people could do now, especially with a lot of modern technology. But back then they didn't have as much of it, or a lot of it was still in its infancy, so I was learning a lot about video game and scripting and coding and graphic designs, and I wanted to make a video game. And we talked about it through elementary and we got into middle school, and that's when in 2013 we started really getting serious and talking to some people, most of which I don't talk to anymore, most of which I haven't had an actual conversation with in years, but most of those people, we decided we were going to make a video game. And we talked about space games, we talked about, doing a whole bunch of stuff, and we really got into it in a project that I would still like to do later on in life. So, I could foresee something like that happening, so I'm not going to get too in detail with it. But creating a space video game, essentially, something kind of Mass Effect-ish, because that's what was popular at the time, especially with me, was Mass Effect. I just got Mass Effect 3 and loved the fuck out of it. I know not a lot of people like Mass Effect 3, or Andromeda, but I enjoyed Mass Effect 3 and Andromeda, so, maybe I'm the non-vocal minority here. But essentially what it was is I created a video game company with my friends. They weren't a part, like they were a part of it in the sense that they were employees, like I considered them employees, but the company became official when in 2014 I decided to divert some of that money from buying video games into actually creating a video game company. I went on to LegalZoom, a company I shall never use again if I have the opportunity to do so, just because later on in years they were just, it seems in my personal opinion, they're just out to get money, and they generally don't give a fuck about you, and they will, I felt like I was getting scammed anytime I bought something from them. That was just my feeling. Not saying they are, not saying they aren't. I'm just saying that was my personal feeling. When you buy something, you're like, I don't feel right making this purchase. Now I know about that, and my phone conversations I'll talk about a little bit, maybe in the next video or some other video. They would always give you the cheaper option after you had to push for it. I understand they're a big company and that's their goal to make money, but it's just, it didn't seem right, especially, when you're talking, again, thousands of dollars. So I had formed a company with LegalZoom at the time, thought they were great, little I know. And we went, and my dad sat down and we helped, and we formed the company. We walked through the steps, and formed an LLC of what was Plaz Games. That's the name we came up with, me and my group of friends. We talked about it. I went in, I did it on like a Friday. I sat down before work and we incorporated a business. It went to, the secretary, or the state secretary, not secretary of state, the state secretary of Florida, and approved in the whole 9 yards. I spent like $400 or $500 creating this business, and I went in. Then a couple weeks later, I was like, guys, look, I actually have a business. And at the age of 13, I owned a business, like an actual, real registered company. I was a managing member. Again, I had ownership, but not quite legal ownership of it. It's just saying I was a part of the business and I was an important part of the business. But me and my dad, we owned it, so therefore we essentially had, I owned a business. That's basically what it was. So I would just gone through that, and then for 6 years, this was back 2014, for 6 years I essentially didn't do anything with it. That's the unfortunate thing is, it's like people who are so great and then they don't do anything with that greatness. It was such a great idea. I come up with concepts. I worked on some assets and stuff, but eventually I just kind of fell out of love with it. and I kind of fell out of the idea with it. I still wanted to do stuff. I still thought that was going to be my career, and I just kind of looked at it, and the more and more I got, I guess, disillusioned with it. It was a big thing, and I still have somewhat of an interest in it, but not to the point where I want to sink hundreds of thousands of hours and create a business and grind and do all that for that purpose. Everybody knows I love the hustle and I love grinding and making money, building businesses, doing all that, but just for that purpose and for that business, I didn't want to do it. My interest has changed. And since then, that's what happened, and I just kept spending, again, hundreds of dollars a year, keeping up with annual reports you got to file, registered agents as LegalZoom's fees kept going up and up. $600 for 3 years. Yeah, fuck you. I must spend $600 up front. Oh, but if you do this, yeah, go fuck yourself. That's essentially the way I looked at it. I'm not doing that. Websites, for premium and have a .com website, I'm spending it's like $50, $60 a year, which granted for a website isn't bad if I was actually selling and making money from it, but I was just selling. I was just throwing money away. I was just essentially lighting it on fire. I probably spent a good 10 grand in those 6 years just maintaining and keeping the company and made $0 in profit. So as somebody who learned about finances, it doesn't take a financial genius to realize that that's just a fucking stupid idea. Mr. Wonderful says if business doesn't make you money within the first 4 years, it's a pretty shitty business and you gotta end it. There's a good thing to death. You could do it as a tax write-off. There's a positive in the death of a business. But essentially that's what I did today was, they pushed back the filing instead of May 1st. I had to spend like $130 to file an annual report, in the state of Florida. And I said, oh, fuck that, I'm not doing that. I said, I'm not doing anything with it. I said, there's no real reason for me to keep this going. If I want to recreate it, I could spend $200 and do it again. It's not a big deal. I could reopen it any time of the day. It's just right now I had to close it. And it was kind of a symbolic thing for me because now, that business that I've been working on somewhat for 6 years, and that childhood business, my first company that I really owned, especially now when I was 18, I was the sole owner of it. I actually owned legally a company at the age of 18. How many people can really say they did that? That's a big fucking thing for me, But in order to maintain it, just to be able to say, I still own a company that I owned since I was 18. Well, I owned a company when I was 18. I did it. That's it. I'm done. That's it. I'm going to own many companies, I'm sure, after that, after this and into the future. But I didn't need to keep spending money just for bragging rights. So from what I learned from it, it was a very tough and a very emotional thing. Kind of saying goodbye to it. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was. But it's kind of like how I closed my credit cards. It was just like, oh wow, fuck, okay. And this was actually something positive. We could use it for taxes, this, that. But it wasn't like a nuisance like credit cards are. But essentially what it was the end of a kind of era. And a kind of stop and shut down, saying goodbye to almost an old friend is what it was like. It was kind of tough because that was always a part of my life for 6 years. Similar to how the restaurant was. Again, not a big part of it like the restaurant was. It doesn't compare in how important it was in my life. But it was still a part of my life for that long period of time. And I said goodbye to it today. I shut it down. I spent my $25 to dissolve it and then close it down. So I'd done that just a couple minutes ago, and that's kind of still my fresh feelings on it. And something important that I learned from it is if you're not doing something it's just paying out. Like say you had a car, and you're not really driving it, you're not really using it. I learned this situation too. If you have a car you're not using, not driving, all it's doing is costing you money, fucking get rid of it. If it's even symbolically, unless it has this great, emotional attachment to you that's worth, I would pay $1,000 to get this back if I ever lost a kind of emotional attachment. Stop spending money. Stop spending money on it. That's all I was doing, was just wasting money away to it. Be like, yeah, maybe I'll do something with it. $20 a year or something like that, $30 a year, and it's something that can, be a tax write-off, this, that. I have a great potential to use it. Maybe then I would have done it, but hundreds, almost thousands of dollars a year I was spending. I cut it down to, just a couple $100s a year. Even still, a couple $100s a year for doing nothing with it. Either I did something with it or I could shut it down. Well, for the foreseeable future, I don't see myself doing something with it, and I could always just reopen it again, for basically the same price later on. Right now, my best option was to shut it down. So that's something that I learned about it, is if it's not making you money, it's not a huge thing that's like, I need to have this in my life 100%. Maybe it's time to let it go. So that's kind of the important thing on it, and that's kind of my feelings on letting go of things. There's also a lot of stuff of my toys and whatnot. Everybody's like, oh, you're showing off your childhood. No, it's stuff that I personally don't have an interest in anymore. There's a lot of stuff that my interests have changed, similar to with the company. Now I'm doing this. This is my thing, and I'm gung ho, and this is something I really love to do. It's again rooted it in something I enjoy, making money and progressing with money and doing that, making myself better. Something I've been doing or trying to do at least my entire life. So when you have to let go of something that you had, all these toys that I have, that's why I'm selling them on eBay. That money can go towards investments and make me, my family, my kids, my grandkids, when I have, kids and grandkids and a family of my own, when I could do all that, that could put food on our table, or I could have it in action figures that I used to collect just sit here in totes in my room. What's the point of that? So same thing with the business. I could spend thousands, hundreds, if not thousands of dollars just to be like, this is a business that I've kept up since I was, 13. Or I can not spend all that money and actually go use that money and do something productive and be like, oh yeah, I owned a business since I was 13, and then here's the story of it. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's what makes sense, and it's what the best thing for me. So that's kind of the step that I took towards it, and that's kind of something that I learned is people in your life, if they're not helping you and all it's doing is hindering you, and the only thing connected to you is time, it's just like, oh, I've known this person forever, I've been with this person forever, I've had this company forever, I've had this thing forever, but it's doing nothing for me. In fact, it's hurting me financially, emotionally, whatever. Maybe you gotta let go. And interest changed too, why I switched away from that kind of business and doing video games. Maybe again I'll do something in the future, maybe I'll do something like that if I have an interest to do so. Interest change, people adapt, and that essentially I don't think was in the cards for me. It wasn't what I wanted, and it wasn't what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. At the time I thought it was, and if I would have pursued it and pushed harder, maybe it would have been. But it's not now, and it's not what I'm going to progress in the future. So that's it. That's the story on how I shut down my company, good old Plaz Games. You will be missed, and thank you for all the great memories and fond times that I had. Thank you for everything, all the talks with my friends, all the video game stuff that we used to do. I have spreadsheets of drawings and financial statements and what this game would do and what this game would be like, and little sprites and assets. So maybe I'll show some of that stuff. It's really cool, and it was really maybe not the most productive thing for my younger self to be doing, but it definitely was pretty cool. And maybe I'll show you guys some of that stuff. But thank you for everything, my company, and I'm sorry to see you go. But something that you guys had to let go, that either your interest changed or it became, harmful to you, and you had to cut it off, either a person, an item, a place, whatever. What is that thing that you had to let go from your past? If you guys like this video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.